Ciao Am. So today we're going to be learning about solving and graphing absolute values with inequality. So similar to yesterday. Yesterday you learned about solving absolute value with equal signs and how you have to write two equations. It's almost exactly the same thing, but they're just going to add inequalities into it and see what that does to the equation. You also have to graph that. So let's do a couple problems and so you can see what I'm talking about. So let's take a look at our board. Solve and graph. I'm going to give you guys an inequality with absolute value x minus 1 is greater than 3. So similar to the equal sign, what we have to do is we have to write two equations. Remember, absolute value still means distance, but now it means distance greater than 3. So where is that distance greater than 3? So take a look. I'm going to write two equations. The first equation will look like this. If I have a distance of 3, I could do one of two ways. I could actually walk to the positive direction. So I write exactly the same thing without changing anything, putting a positive 3 there. Also, distance, I could walk into the negative direction. So I write it again, x minus 1, and now I put a negative 3. And since we're into the negative field now, remember we have to flip the sign. So, a couple things when you're writing both equations. You have a positive and you have a negative. You can walk to the positive direction. You can also walk to the negative direction. When you walk in the negative direction, you put a negative and you flip the sign. Remember, we talked about this before. What happens when you walk over to the negative? Solve exactly the same way. Add 1 to both sides. X is greater than 4. Add 1 to both sides. X is less than negative 2. Here's our answer. That's it. Now all we have to do is just graph it. So take a look. Let me pull out a graph for you. We're still in one dimension since we only have one variable. So since we're one dimensional, we only have one line. Pull out my line here. So we have a graph. So look at this x at 4. So is that open circle or closed circle at 4? That's going to be an open circle at 4. So we draw our open circle at 4. Then we have an open circle at negative 2. There's a couple ways to look at this. You can actually read it and graph it. Or, if you take a look at this, read this. That means distance greater than 3. Distance more than 3. So when we're walking more than 3, we're walking like 4, 5, 6, 7. From where? From the center. So where's my center at? My center is at 1. So my center is at 1. Take a look. This is the distance of 3. Here's my center. At 1, I walk 1, 2, 3. You guys see that? That goes to 4. 1, 2, 3. And I could walk 1, 2, 3 to the left. What does it mean? Distance bigger than 3. That means everything bigger than 3. Where am I going to walk more than 3? Over here, everything over here is more than 3. See, over here is 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Those are all distance walked farther. Over here is a distance of 1, 2, 3. Here's a distance of 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Everything over here. So when you're graphing that, this is what your graph should look like. It should have open circle bigger than and open circle less than. So if you read this, x is bigger than 4 to the right, x is less than negative 2 to the left. How do you feel? That looks kind of messy. Let's do another one. A little bit harder. Solve and graph. 1/2 absolute value of x minus 1 plus 2 is less than or equal to 5. Now solving for this one's a little bit harder. When you're looking at this problem, you go, okay, I'm not used to this. I'm used to seeing something like this, where absolute value by itself. So when we see something that doesn't look normal or it looks a little more complicated, we try to simplify it. They actually added more stuff to make it more complicated. So look at this. What can we simplify first? What will be the easiest thing to fix? I have to fix two things. I have to fix this 2 right here, and I have to fix this 1/2. I like to add subtract first. It seems easier for me to add and subtract, so I fix the 2 first. Subtract 2 from both sides. Subtract 2 from both sides, leaving 1/2 absolute value of x minus 1 less than or equal to 3. Now, a couple of you guys might ask, can I distribute that negative 1/2 inside? I want to say no. That's actually the wrong way to go. I always think about this as like big wall, like huge wall that people can't jump. So we can't really distribute that in. So what's another way to get rid of that 1/2 without distributing that in? Because that kind of messes up the equation. What's the inverse of 1/2? The inverse of 1/2 is multiply by 2 over 1, or multiply by 2 both sides. 2 over 1 times 1/2 is 1, leaving just the x minus 1. Over here, 3 over 1 times 2 over 1 is 6 over 1, or less than 6. Now it's back to what we did the first time, like this equation right here. So we have an absolute value less than or equal to 6. We do exactly the same thing. We split into two equations. We could walk 6 into the positive direction or 6 to the negative direction. If I walk to the positive direction, it looks like this. X minus 1 less than or equal to 6, right? Everything exactly the same. Didn't change anything. I could walk into the negative direction, which x minus 1, and now, remember, flip the sign and put a negative. That's two things you need to do. When you walk in the negative direction, you put a negative, you flip the sign. Solve for this. Add 1 to both sides. X is, sorry about the colors, x is less than or equal to 7. Add 1 to both sides. X is greater or equal to negative 5. There's my two answers. Now I graph this. Let's graph this. I don't know why that keeps on coming up. So, take a look. We have a closed circle at 7, so we go over to 7, we do a closed circle. We go over to negative 5, we do a closed circle. Now, if we look at our original equation, it says, not our original, but this equation right here. This equation right here. It says, distance, before we split it, distance is less than 6. Less than 6. So where am I going to walk less than 6? This might be a little bit complicated to understand. The middle is 1. Where is less than 6? Less than 6 is in here. Anything past that dot is greater than 6. Anything past this dot is greater than 6 of a distance. So when you see a distance less than, usually you're shading in between something. If you see a distance greater than, you're shading on the outside because you're walking farther than you should be. How do you guys feel so far? Let's do one more. What if I said this? Absolute value of x minus 3 plus 2 negative 2 is greater or equal to negative 7. Actually, let's change that to negative. Let's change that to negative 6. We don't want to deal with fractions yet. Alright. Let's take a look at this. We do the same thing. So, I want you to try this on your own. I'll help you with the answers at the end. Give it a try. And then bring your answers tomorrow to school. And then we'll check our answers together. See if you can try that on your own. Alright. Good job, guys.